Hey, this is Andrew Brown, and what we're going to be doing here is building out an AWS Amplify application. Now, if you're not familiar with this framework, it is for building out rapidly mobile and front-end web applications for AWS, but the idea is that you don't need to know so much about the backend. There's a lot of opinions integrated into this framework that makes development a lot faster and easier for new beginners to AWS. Now, I did find having a bit of trouble using the AWS Amplify framework just because I'm not so familiar with the latest and greatest web frameworks. And so the solution I have that I built out here is going to be using plain JavaScript, something you don't see a lot with Amplify. And so this is going to help us really understand at the base level, what is it that we're working with? And another thing is that I really want to utilize the Amplify Admin UI. I do not want to write any backend code, and I want to make sure Amplify is also hosting it. So this is going to be as low code as I can go with AWS Amplify. So what we're going to be building out is the Banana Brigade app. Now, I've already written the code, and so when we get to the code part, we will review it. So this is really focused on provisioning the application and understanding the low-code backend hookup to this. And I have a fresh new AWS account that we're going to use for that. And I have also the application over here. So yeah, that will be what we'll be doing. Okay, so let's just jump right into it and start setting up the backend low-code solution in our AWS account. So we already have a front end, so we don't have to worry about this for a while. But here I am in AWS. This is the first screen you'll see when you log in. And the way we're going to find that service is go to the top here to the search bar and type in Amplify. And so here we'll have Amplify, and I'll go ahead and click that. Now, I just want to clarify something because there can be a lot of confusion around the term Amplify because it means more than one thing. If we go back to the documentation, you'll notice there's these 4 boxes here, and that's because Amplify can be the client-side libraries that are used to interact with AWS services. They have a CLI, which is a way to provision new Amplify apps or push your code or pull back-end code. Then you have the Amplify Console. That is a hosting solution, which we're going to be using. And then there's the new Amplify Admin UI, which is the big focus of this follow along here, which is a low-code backend. So you don't have to know dynamodb, Cognito, all that stuff. You just press buttons and it works. So hopefully that makes sense, the distinction between these 4. If it doesn't, it will as we proceed. And so right now we are focused on the Amplify Console. So that's where we are right now. So we have this nice welcome screen, and we have 2 options. If we scroll all the way down the bottom, we have create an app backend and host your web application. And so these 2 options are a little bit worded clunky, but what it means is that if you choose this option, all you have is a backend, and at this one technically is just a front end, but you can add a backend to it. So we want a fully hosted solution, both a front end and a backend. So this is the option we're going to choose. You might not be presented with the screen because this is only ever seen once. And so what I'm going to recommend is we'll just go all the way to the top here. We're going to click that hamburger menu, click all apps, and then from here, we'll just make it from here. It's just a little bit more consistent. So we'll click host web app. And so the first option we have to provision the Amplify console is we need to hook up our front-end code, which is here on GitHub. So what you're going to want to do is go ahead and fork this repo, and you need to fork it so that when you connect to GitHub, you actually have something that you can pull from. And this is a public repo, so it shouldn't be too hard. Once you fork that, come back here. We're going to click on GitHub. We're going to go ahead and click on continue. And you may experience a pop-up here to authenticate your GitHub, so you have to enter your login credentials. And once you are, you'll get this nice little green bar here, and we'll go ahead and choose a repository. So I'm going to go here, choose Banana Brigade, hit the refresh if you do not see it. We will stick with the main branch. We only have one branch. We have this option called connecting a mono repo. I think this is when you have maybe there's like a folder within it. Yeah, so let's say you had multiple applications. Let's say you had like 10 applications and one application you want to deploy in a single GitHub repository. Very common with serverless applications, but the main app sits at the root of this, so we do not have to do that. We'll go ahead and hit next, and we will be presented with a build and test settings page here. Now, we don't need to create one. So in your base folder, you're supposed to have a file. I think it's like apps. It's not app spec YAML. It's like amplify spec Amplify YAML file, but we're going to stick with the defaults here. Let's just look at what it does. So the idea here is that it goes through phases, and the first thing it's going to do is run CI. CI is the same thing as saying install, so npm install. The next step it's going to run is npm run build, so we better have a build step in our application. If we go over here, actually I have a VS Code, so let's go over to VS Code. But if we open up our package.json, notice that we have a build step here for our Webpack, so that's what it's going to try to run. And we will go back to our console here. And then it's talking about artifacts, so it's saying where is the outputted files that we want to host, and it's in that dist directory, the dist directory. So if we go back to the code, notice that I have that here, okay? And then if we look here, it says all files. So basically it says everything within that distribution directory, that's what we're going to upload for hosting. And then it has cache paths. I don't really understand that, but I guess it's something for Node. And I think that if we download that file, the name of that file, yeah, it's amplify.yaml. But you'll notice, again, that I don't have one in my repo. But if you wanted to overwrite it, you could put one in there and change all that information. But I'm happy with the default. We'll take a look here at advanced settings. So we can actually set a build image, which is kind of cool. But it seems a little bit complicated to me. And we can also set some environment variables that we might want to pass along. I don't have anything to pass along here. Then we have live package updates. So override the default installed version of package tools. This is not something that I want to do. And we'll go ahead and hit next. So we'll have our usual review screen. I think everything looks fine here. Notice that it auto-detected that it's using Webpack. We'll go ahead and hit save and deploy. So now we will just wait a little bit here. And I'll see you back in a bit. All right, so now we are presented with the actual AWS Amplify console, but we're not ready just yet because if you notice here, we have a front-end environment and a back-end environment. And the front environment currently is provisioning. So it's going to go through all these steps. It's going to go provision, build, deploy, and verify. So what has happened here is that when we created a new Amplify application, what it actually did is it created an S3 bucket. It created a CloudFront CDN for us, and then it created also probably a code pipeline, so a pipeline to automatically deploy. So every time we push to main, what it's going to do is automatically trigger this process here and automatically deploy our application. And so that is the power of the AWS Amplify console. If you had to set all that up by yourself, especially if it's your first time, probably could take 1 or 2 weeks. But those resources are there. Now, you can't see them. So if I was to go to S3, right, and see where that S3 static website hosting bucket is, it's just we don't see it, right? So that is being managed by the Amplify console. So that is one of the trade-offs there. So if you are used to having access to those services and you like to configure them, that's where Amplify you might not want to use the Amplify console for. But if you just want AWS to take care of everything for you, then that is a great choice there. So there's that. Now this is going to take a little bit of time, and that's okay because we can keep busy while we're doing that. And so what we're going to want to do is set up our backend environment. Now what I did, and I made this mistake before, is I went over here to Admin UI, and then I checkboxed on this, assuming that this would provision our backend. But unfortunately, that is not actually how it works, even though that's how I went about it. What you actually have to do is go back to your app up here. And what we're going to do is click on Backend Environments and scroll on down and hit Get Started. And what this is going to do is set up an Amplify Admin UI console for us. So we'll hit Get Started and see now it's setting up something else. So it's a bit interesting, but the Admin UI is separate from AWS, and you can set up separate credentials for people to log in. But we're just going to have to wait for both of those to finish. And so that takes a bit of time. So I'll see you back when the Admin UI is done and both the front end is done. So here I want to show you something interesting. My front end actually failed. This has never happened to me before, so I think it's a great opportunity to see how we would actually debug something that's failed in our front end. So here it went to the provision step, so that went fine. Then went to build, and then we had a failure. And notice that these are clickable. So what we'll do is go ahead and click on that. And if you look down below, I'm just showing you the left-hand side, that this is just down here in the history. So if I go back up here, if I wanted to get there as well, I could just go down, Oh, it actually only appears when you click it. Okay. That's interesting. So we actually do have to click into there, but notice that we have the steps: provision, build, test, deploy, and this is where it failed. So first it says cloning the repository. That's grabbing it from GitHub. That is working no problem. And then we have this front end code. So remember that Amplify YAML file? That's what it's running here. And so it's failing. It's failing when it runs this Webpack mode production. And just scrolling through here, I'm just going to take a quick glance. And we're seeing something, I'm not too sure what it is, but a really easy way to find out is just simply to run that command locally, right? And that's something I didn't do. So it's probably important that you test your build steps before you push them to production. So I'm just going to flip back over here. And this is my terminal. And what I'm going to do is actually just run that command and see what happens. So we'll do npm run build. That's what it's running. And so that's what this is going to trigger: Webpack mode production. And we might have to wait here just a little bit for this to error out. So we'll just give it a moment here. And while you're waiting, if you have a banana, go enjoy it. There we go. So here it says AWS exports does not exist in our source directory, cannot resolve.aws exports in the source directory. I know what this is. Okay, so what we're going to do is go back to VS Code, and I'm just opening up the index.js under our source directory here. And what it's trying to do is load this .aws exports. Now this AWS exports file is used to communicate between the front end where the back end is. Now we don't have a back end yet, so it's trying to find that file, and it's erroring out because that gets generated out by AWS Amplify. And so what we're going to have to do is go ahead and comment that out. That's going to be no good, no bueno. And then we'll also comment this out here, and that should more or less fix it. Now, this will probably error out because we have a lot of dependencies on Amplify, but at the very least, as long as the step builds, we should be okay. Because we'll just deploy the front end, see that it's broken, provision the back end, hook it up, and then we'll be in good shape. So let's just hope this builds here. And it does, so that's good. Some warnings, no big deal there, but that's all we need to make the application work. And so what I'm going to do is go git add there, and we're going to say git commit -m, and we'll just say ignore AWS exports for now. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a git push. And so that will go ahead and push that. And so that should trigger a new deploy, right? Because if it's hooked up automatically, it should just work. So let's go see if it's actually doing that. So we'll go back to here, and we'll go all the way to the top. And notice it's provisioning. So that is something that it does. It's just automatic. So again, I'm going to wait until this is done, and we'll see you back in a bit. So this provisioning step does take a long time, but I figured while we're waiting, we might as well go register a domain because maybe we can hook that up in a later step. So I'm going to go up here and just right click and open new tab for the AWS console, and we'll make our way over to Route 53. Now this is totally optional. You don't have to do it, but I just thought it was fun to set up a domain here. So we'll go over here. I'm going to go ahead and go register a new domain, and I'm going to hit register. And so I need something fun. So it's called Banana Brigade. Banana Brigade. Let's see if I can get that. Wow, that's amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and hit add to cart. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull that off screen here because I might have some sensitive credentials I don't want to share. I'm going to hit continue. Yeah, I just want to show you. See, I have to fill in all this information here. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and fill this off screen, and I'll have a domain registered here. It should only take me a moment. And while you're watching me, you can watch the line, okay? I'm just filling out my address now. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and continue. Whoops. And so I won't show you the top part of this, but when you register a new domain, it asks you if you want to automatically renew. I don't know about that. I'm going to say disabled for the time being. I'm going to hit I have agreed here. Now we can say enabled, sure, why not? And I'm going to go ahead and complete that order. And so you notice here, it's just going to say your order is being processed. It might take a little bit of time for your payment to be debited, et cetera, okay? And then they talk about saying, okay, you have to wait a while and could take up to 3 days. Honestly, it usually is same day. All right, so it's just going to send some stuff back forth. And if this is all hooked up, then we'll hook it up today. And if it's not, well, at least you saw how you could register a domain. All right, so it looks like our deploy is complete for our front end. So we have the provision, build, deploy, and verify step. It's all good, but let's just go take a look at some of the information that's here. So under provision, this is provisioning the underlying infrastructure. Nothing very interesting there. That's our build step. We looked at this in our debug step. This is running that Amplify YAML file. So in here, you can see that it's running the build step. Okay, then there's a test phase. We'd have to set this up manually, but maybe we'd want to write some test code to make sure our app's running before it deploys. We have the deploy step, and because it's using static S3 website hosting, all it really has to do is copy the files into that bucket. And again, we don't have access to that bucket. I just know that it's happening. And then we have a verify step, which is cool. It actually renders out your homepage in a variety of screens so you can visually confirm that it's working. So that's pretty cool. And if we scroll all the way to the top here, noticed that we have our domain. So if we go ahead and right click there, here we can see that our app looks like it's working. It's not hooked up to a backend yet, but it visually works. So that's pretty cool. And so now what we're ready to do is go ahead and set up our backend. So what I want you to do is go to the top left corner here, click on Banana Brigade. And the way we access it is through this backend environments. Now, what I would have done, and this is what I had originally done, is I went to the admin UI management. I would create a user, and then I found out like that was the wrong way to do it. Okay, the way you're going to get into it, and you could do it this way later on, but the easiest way is just go to this back environment tab and then look for this big orange button and go ahead and click that button. That's what you want to do. All right, and so we'll go ahead and press that, and that's going to open up the Admin UI console, which is a totally different UI from the AWS Amplify console. It's a subservice of Amplify console. And on the left-hand side, this is all the stuff that we can set up. Now, most of these are kind of placeholders. If you click into them, it's just kind of like curl commands. There's not a lot here. But what is really powerful and what we are going to use today is authentication and data, and probably content and user management. So we are going to need data for our application, and so we are going to have to set up a data model. That's just a fancy way of saying let's set up the tables. And what AWS Amplify uses in the back is actually from the admin UI is using dynamodb, which goes through AppSync, and that's how it works. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and create ourselves a new model. And actually, I don't remember exactly all my instructions, but luckily, I wrote them all down here. So I just can't remember what I want for my columns. So we'll just scroll on down here. And so we need a vector, a cognito UUID. And you know what? There's a step missing there. It's supposed to have, nope, that's actually all of them. So what we'll do is we'll go back here and we'll drop this down. And notice that we have three options. So we have add model, add enum, and add custom type. And so add model is when you have a table, and it has to have an ID, all right? And if you have a custom type, it's the exact same thing. It just doesn't have an ID. That's the only difference between these two. So if you want to have an ID or you have to have an ID, choose model. If you don't want to have an ID and you want to do full custom, choose custom type. So we definitely want an ID. There's also enum. Enum, like it stands for enumerable and just means like a bunch of variable values like this. This could be like fruit, banana, apple. Okay. How you use that, what you use that for, I don't know. But I just know what it is. And so I just kind of wanted to tell you a little bit about that. But we're going to set up our banana. And we're going to name it banana because if we name it bananas, then later on when we use it, there's gonna be like a button in the content that says add bananas, and that doesn't make any sense. So we make sure that it's singular. I'm gonna use the title case. It doesn't matter. You can make it lowercase if you want, but I'm just used to doing that when working with DynamoDB tables, at least for the table name. And so what we want is a cognito UUID. That is going to store the unique identifier for the cognito user. And then we're going to have a vector here. And the vector here is going to be AWS JSON. And now notice that when you click this column, we have a few options here, like is required, is array. So I'm going to say that this one is required and this one is required. So if those are not provided, it will not create that stuff there. And I think that, yeah, notice when I checkbox this on, it gives it an exclamation mark. And when I checkbox it off, that's how we know. All right. So those are the values we're going to need. Careful you don't press is array. But this is just, it gets passed as a string, but it's going to store a JSON object, which is going to be our X, our Y, and our Z value to say where our banana is going to appear on the screen. Now, we want our data to be authenticated, meaning like someone logs in and that's the only way they can access the data. We don't have that option just yet because we have to create our cognito pool, but we need to create one or the other first. So we have to do a couple steps here. So we'll go ahead and save and deploy. I'm going to go ahead and hit deploy. Now notice when we're deploying, if you look in the top right corner, I don't know why they put it here, but that's where it is. This is where we can monitor our deploy. And all this is running is CloudFormation templates. So I'm just going to go back over here to the a different AWS tab, open a new tab. And I just want to show you. You can see it over here as well. So we'll go over to CloudFormation, type CloudFormation at the top, click here. And we will go and click into here. Sometimes it's more fun to watch over here, depends up to you. And these are the resources it's going to provision. We can see what it's doing. So it's setting up a deployment bucket in S3. It's setting up a role, an on-auth role, an auth role. Then there's something called an API Banana Brigade. Is that a nested stack? It is. So we can click into this one. It's nothing for us to do, so we might as well look at this while we're deploying. And so that's the nested stack here. What is this deploying? We go to resources here. This is setting up, this is data store. This is our DynamoDB table. Then you have GraphQL. That's part of AppSync. Then you have your API key, you have your schema, and you have your data source. And so these, I believe that we'll actually be able to access. Now we don't, again, the front end AWS Amplify Console, we don't see the S3 bucket, we don't see the CloudFront distribution, but for these, we actually can see them. And we'll just give this a refresh here and we can see that they're created. And we're gonna have to wait a little while on this one, but while this is going, let's go over and take a look at our DynamoDB table. So we could click here to get to it, but what I'm gonna do is make another tab. And I'm gonna go to the top here and just type in DynamoDB. So I just wanna show you how to get there on your own. And this looks like the old layout. I don't know why I don't have the new one. Usually it says, hey, do you wanna use the new layout? Maybe people didn't like it, they reverted it back. We'll go to tables here. Yeah, this is the old one. Where's the new one? Oh, here it is. Try the preview of the new console. It's going to be the future. You're going to be watching this video, and I want to make sure you're seeing the latest one. So on the left-hand side, we're going to go to tables. And here we have two tables. We have this data store table, and then we have this banana table. That's our actual model here. I'm going to go click into this one. And there's no data here yet. So we don't know what these items are going to look like until we start inserting them. Going to go back to the table. And here's our banana table. Again, we don't say anything in here. But it's good just to know that these things are around. So let's go back to CloudFormation. Is this done yet? Still going. It's that schema. Takes forever. And while we're waiting, let's go take a look at the Amplify or the AppSync. So at the top here, we'll type in AppSync. And here it is, Banana Brigade staging. We could run queries here if we like. Check out the schema. So here's our actual schema. Notice that there's that exclamation mark. That's because when we wrote that in the admin UI, it translated over to this. And so I assume that exclamation means required. I don't know. I'm not an expert in AppSync just yet. And you'll notice that we have those enums. So there's an enum there of some sort. I know you didn't make it, but it just set that there for you. And so there's a bunch of stuff in here. We have our data sources. This is how AppSync knows what DynamoDB to hook up to. That's why they're in there. Functions would be for custom data. So you know how in the Amplify Admin UI, there's functions. Those are going to get hooked up through here, through that there in, where'd it go? Over here in the functions. Queries, we can run any kind of query we want. Notice that it already created some pre-designed ones for us here. So that's very nice of them. So we can click that and hit run. And it's going to try to return data. We don't have any data right now, so there's nothing for it to do. But again, you know, this is just a simplification so you don't have to deal with this stuff, right? But let's go back to CloudFormation. I like to click Stack Info. This is updated. So this is all done. If I go back, we'll close out the AppSync one. It's getting a bit confusing here. We'll leave dynamodb open, and it's done. Sometimes this will say that it's still going, and then CloudFormation says it's done. But anyway, now that we have that, we want the Cognito user pool. So I'm going to go over here to authentication, and we're going to make some choices here. So by default, it's going to expect you to have an email. We can choose our login mechanism. So we got Facebook, Google, Amazon, your phone number. Notice we don't have GitHub, we don't have Twitter, we don't have LinkedIn. This is all based on Cognito. It's not AWS's fault. These other companies aren't following the standard for Auth0, or not Auth0, that's another brand. OAuth, sorry. And so, you know, it's like, if from a security perspective, if they're not compliant with 100%, we can't have those mechanisms. You can code them in yourself. It's a lot of work. There are no examples on the internet, but I just want to tell you why that is. You can add MFA, which is kind of nice. And then we can configure sign up. So we are going to just need a nickname. That's where we're going to store our hash node. Notice that it's going to require an email. That is our main way of logging in. And we're going to get down to password here. And I just want to make it really easy. This is not a critical app, so I'm just going to checkbox all this stuff. I'm going to switch this over to email because I think that's more cost effective. I think SMS, it's all cheap, but I think that email is like free up to a point, and SMS, I always think that it costs pennies. So even if it's pennies, I just don't want to pay for it, okay? So what we're going to do is go ahead and hit save and deploy. We'll hit confirm deploy. And again, up to the top right corner, that's where it is. And it's just running CloudFormation. So while we're waiting, let's go take a look and make our way over to CloudFormation. I'll give it a refresh here. We should see a stack. Maybe click back on stacks here. Here it is down below. So it's not creating a new stack. Well, it is creating new resources, but it's updating an existing one. So it didn't make a new one. It just updated an existing one. So if we go over here, we can go see now what it's adding. So it is adding IAM role, and then we have some new nested CloudFormation stacks, right? The reason it's going to update the original one is because it needs to tell DynamoDB to, if we want to use it with Cognito to authenticate, and that's what it's doing. So we can take a look at these nested stacks here. There's one there. Looks like there's two, but we'll click into this one. And this is the authentication stuff. So this should be setting up, yeah, the user pool for Cognito. And the name's stretched out here like crazy. So we got the user pool client, things like that, the IAM role. Let's go take a look at Cognito while we're waiting. So I'm going to go and type in Cognito. And Amazon Cognito is where we do all of our authentication. It's weird they don't. This is one of the few services where they don't have a hamburger menu. They always have these two buttons. And so what we want is user pools. And then notice that we have Banana Brigade and then the backend manager. I don't know what the backend manager is. I guess it's for admins, probably. I've actually never looked at this one. But the Banana Brigade one, this is for our users. Notice that it requires a nickname and an email. And we have a lot of options here. Could you go around and fiddle with the values here, and would Amplify respect it? Probably, but you got to be careful because, you know, with these kind of things, they can get out of state and then you have a lot of problems. So always try to just focus on whatever you have in here and not fiddle with the resources underneath. But here we could add our users. We can see the attributes. Notice that it's with email and phone number. It could have been with username, but it's with email. And we have a lot of options here, right? Notice that checkbox on the nickname. And we'll go back to CloudFormation just to see when this is done here. And it's still updating. Oh, updated complete. Cleanup in progress. So that's one done. Just waiting for this other one here. And again, we could just sit here and watch it here. There is a bit of delay between the two. There we go. So this one's now done. It's all done. We're just waiting for Amplify to refresh the page. It's trying to figure out what to do. There we go. And so now we have that all set up. And now we got to go back to data. And now we can drop down Cognito user pool and type in change. I know it's not really fun. It's a lot of waiting, eh? And then once we do that, we now have to hit save and deploy. It hasn't done anything yet. We got to hit save and deploy. And then we have to hit deploy again. I don't know why they have a double confirmation, but I guess it doesn't hurt. When I first did this the first time, I just was sitting there. I thought it was deploying the first time, but it wasn't. I had to hit save and deploy and then deploy again. And again, we can make our way back over to CloudFormation. Give it a refresh. Does it not need CloudFormation for this one? There we go. Yep, it's updating it. And then we go to resources. We can see what it's changing. Oh, is it already done? Nope, down here. So it is updating this Substack here. We can go into the resources here. And it is updating our GraphQL schema, probably because we need authentication for that, eh? I'm not sure exactly what it's changing. We could go check it out, see if there's anything interesting. Go over to AppSync. But, you know, I encourage you to, even if you're not comfortable with database, just to explore these services and just view them from afar so you kind of get familiar with them. And so I think what it did was it added this here, eh? Because this wasn't here before, this top line. I notice there's, I think it's just this is the major change we were seeing here. So we will go back here and we will see this, if this is done yet. This might take a bit of time. So what I'm going to do is just close these out here. Simplify this stuff. And I'll just do the dynamodb one open here, and I'll see you back when this is done deploying. All right, welcome back. Didn't have to wait too long there, and everything is done deploying. Just double check by clicking up here in the top right corner. And now we have two things open to us. We can create content, right? And we can add users. So let's go ahead and create a user here. And I'm just going to go add myself here. I'm going to make my password testing123. I'm going to hit create. And that's fine. It thinks there's a breach. There's no breach. It's just because I made the password testing123. Of course, that's not secure. And so notice that it says a force change password, meaning the next time it wants me to reset my password. But for our application, I don't think it's required because we didn't enforce that. We also have groups here. I'm not pragmatically using groups in any way, but I mean, if you wanted to subdivide your users, you could have like free users here, and maybe you could have paid users, right? I wonder if you can move them over there. No, so I think you pragmatically would have to write in the code to do that. You could delete, suspend, reactivate, reset their password. Reset password probably come in handy. But you know, if you were to go over again, over to Cognito, we can see them over there as well. User pools, we'll go to Banana Brigade, user groups, and notice there's that record there. It's the same things. You could do it over from here. It's just that it's nice when it's all unified, right? There's a few other options like enable SMS, MFA, and stuff like that. But again, it's pretty much the same. Then we can also add content for this user. So we can go ahead and there should be an add button. We just got to wait for it to load. I'll go ahead and create Banana. And here we got to enter two values in. So this, we need this person's sub. That's what they call it. If I click into here, it's the sub ID. If I go back up to our content, just give it a second to load. We'll hit create banana. I'll paste that in. This takes a vector. So I'm just going to say X is 1, Y is 1, Z is 1. There we go. And so let's take a look at what that looks like now in DynamoDB. So what we'll do is go back over here. Oh, we already have our tab open. I'm kind of curious about this other table. I never looked at it before. If we go here it says banana. So it looks like there's a single item. Cognito ID versioning. So I think this holds like the versioning of stuff, because when you're using data store, and we haven't talked about data store yet, but when you're using data store with the Amplify console or Amplify in general, the data is immutable. So it never deletes your old data. It always has the older records here. And so I think that's what the data store is. Now going over here, I think this is where we see our pure records. So here we can see the ID that it auto-generated. Looks just like a random UUID. The type, it's a banana. Version 1. We can see the Cognito user ID. And there's our data there. So as we update records, I believe the old records go into here. This version will update to 2. So they're always there. And we'll just go ahead and close that now. This isn't going to be very useful for us. So we'll go ahead and just delete these items. And we'll go ahead and delete this user, because I want to sign up for the first time myself. All right, and so our front end's deployed, but our backend code, it doesn't know how to communicate with our backend, and so that's our next step. So what we'll do is first working our local developer environment, and then we'll figure out how to do it in production here on the deployed to AWS. So what I'm going to do is go back to my terminal here, and you should clone this repo. It'd be like git clone, right? You clone it and go grab that link there. And once you have it, you'll need just to do an npm install. And then once you've done an npm install, to run the app locally, you're just going to run npm start. All right, and so I'm just going to start a new video here, just do a hard break here, and then we'll go into the code here. Okay. All right, so we're back here, and again, all I did was run npm install, right, and then an npm start in my code base here, and I'm just going to flip over to my code base, and I just want to show you where those commands are coming from. If you go to package.json. And you scroll on down here, we have these scripts. And so here's our build step, here's our start. So when we ran npm start, it ran this line here, which is for Webpack. And when we run anything but start, this is an npm thing, but if you run npm start, if you run any kind of other script, it's always npm run build, npm, etc. Why they do this, I don't know, but that's just what it is. I think you can also write npm run start and it will work. But yeah, that's how we're going to start up our application. And so if we just go back to our terminal here, it should start on localhost 8080. So let's go back to our browser here, and let's pull that up. So here's our application. Looks like it's in all good working order. Let's go ahead and hit login. We have a login screen, but I'm going to tell you right away this doesn't work. It looks like it's working, but I know it's not. So if I just open up Inspector here, if you're wondering how I do that, I just right-click Inspect. And I'm going to see if I have any errors. We'll go to Console here. Notes at the top, auth error. Amplify has not been configured correctly, right? So yeah, I know it looks like it's working, but it's not. So it's because we don't have that communication between the two. And the way we do that is through that AWS exports file. So what we'll do is go back to VS Code. And I want you to go to the index.js. I know this is a bit hard to see. I'm just going to collapse my distribution directory here. But notice we have a source directory. If you look at Webpack, this is the thing that's running it. So I'm just going to step you through it here. So we have Webpack, right? Down here, Webpack serve. That's going to start a development server, and that's going to load this file here. And what this file does is it's going to need an entry point, which is source.index.js, which is over here, right? So this is the first file it reads. And what it's going to do is take this file, read it, and then it's going to export it out as main.js. When we run our npm run build, it's going to dump it into here. And so that's pretty much it. Then we have some stuff down here. This is for loading files, so assets. This is for rendering style sheets. This is for loading modern JavaScript, okay? And we'll go over here to index.js, and notice here that we're importing Amplify. Now, this is something that can be a bit confusing, but when you read about Amplify, and I'm going to pull it up over here, the actual documentation, the tutorial, if I can. One thing that I find a bit confusing, or I wouldn't say confusing, but when they show you how to set up in your backend, if I can even find it here, the import statement, notice that they're using import AWS Amplify. And so I'm not doing that. I'm doing AWS Amplify -core. The reason I'm doing that is because AWS Amplify has a lot of libraries in it. I'm going to go over to GitHub and we're typing Amplify here. Amplify JS, because we want the client-side JavaScript. But it actually contains a bunch of different packages. Okay, these are all the different types of packages here, right? And so when you do an Amplify, when you do this, you're importing all of this stuff, even if you're not using it, right? And so if you want to keep things lightweight and easy to manage, what you should do is import only what you need. And so all we're working with is data store and authentication. That's the only two libraries we're working with. But in order to use those, we need the core library, because the core has some things configured in it. And this isn't in the documentation, at least right now. And they'll show you how to load individual ones, but they just kind of neglect to tell you to load the core in. And so that's what you need to do. You got to load in the core. All right. And so once we load in the core, we have this command called Amplify Configure. And Amplify Configure allows us to configure our applications. And I think if we just pull up the docs, we'll try here again. Just pulling up the docs here. Just type Amplify Configure. I'm not sure if it'll show us here. No, it's always kind of hard to find the docs, but that file contains all the configuration that we need to communicate that stuff. But you're going to notice that we don't have that file. So I'm just going to do that. So how can we get all that configuration data? Well, we can go back to the admin UI and we can just download that file. So if I just click here in the top right corner, no matter what this says up here, no matter where you are, just click in the top right corner and you'll pull the latest changes. All right. So, and if you click this tab, there's nothing here. It doesn't matter. These tabs don't matter. What you're focused on is this up here. Okay. And we'll hit copy and I'm going to go back to my terminal and I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to just stop my server here, type clear so we can see what we're doing. And I'm just going to paste that in there. We're going to run Amplify pull. So now we're using the Amplify CLI. And I didn't show you how to install the Amplify CLI. That's something you'll have to figure out on your own. It's in the beginning of this tutorial here. If we go back to this, it's like the first thing they show you how to do. Prerequisites here. You're just doing this npm install -g. If you do that and you do your configure step, then you'll be in good shape. I feel kind of bad because this step is a little bit hard. You go Amplify configure and you have to set up an admin IAM user. So we kind of glossed over that. So I'm sorry about that, but we can't go back. And so what this is doing is it's just scanning for plugins. It's trying to assess what's here. There's nothing in our app, so it's not going to do much. And I'm just waiting for this to complete. While we're waiting, we'll just see if it actually generates anything out here. So if we go into here, we now have an Amplify directory and it has backend, which is interesting because I'm not pulling any backend right now. So I don't think anything will show up here. I just think it's just provisioning an empty repository. There we go. So it goes back over here. Are you sure you want to log in to the Amplify CLI? Yes. Because it has to authenticate us. It just has to say, okay, you're pulling from this and we trust who you are. And we have a bit of a complaint here. Failed to pull the backend invalid feature flag. The featured flags are defined in the Amplify CLI JSON file configured are unknown to the current running Amplify CLI. This issue likely happens when the project has been pushed with a newer version of CLI. Maybe. So maybe my CLI is out of date. Also, this is a new account, so I probably do have to set up that IAM user. So we'll update the CLI first. Maybe we'll just install a CLI here. This is a good example to do that. So I'm just going to do a hard break here on the video. I'm I guess we are going to do that stuff I said I didn't do. Let's do that. All right, so welcome back. And so our AWS Amplify CLI is out of date. There's a few different ways to install the Amplify CLI. You can install it as a package. You can install it as a node like a system package, like if you're using Ubuntu or etc. Or you can install it as a node package. And depending on how you install it, it can be hard to get out. So I really strongly recommend, if you're going to do it, the easiest way. It doesn't matter if you see it another way. Be very careful about this, but just do the npm one. See how you have Mac? That's a system install. That is not a npm, I don't believe. And then you have the Windows one. And I'm on a Windows machine. I'm using the Windows subsystem Linux, so I'm actually technically running Linux. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's the easiest way to do is npm. Don't bother with these other ones. And so I'm going to go ahead and go grab npm Amplify CLI. And I may already have this installed in some form, so I don't know if this will... Hold on, before I do that, I'm just going to see if I actually have it first. I'm going to just type in Amplify version. So I do have it installed, and there's an update. Okay, great. So it is installed by the npm install here. So I can just run the same command I just did here. Apparently that will do an update. And they update frequently, as you can see. They're already on version 4. And so we'll go do that. But I think we will have to do an Amplify configure because we don't actually have a user in this account. Because it's a new AWS account I created. So we will have to follow through the steps here. Down below. And yeah, Amplify does take a little bit of time to install. I do have some of these packages already pre-installed, but like, there's a lot of stuff. So this is pretty normal to wait quite a while, okay? So I think I might just stop the video here because I don't want you to have to watch me install things for 100 years. And I'll see you back in a little bit, okay? All right, so after a very long wait, I believe that our Amplify console is up to date. Or CLI, it's something you really have to do quite often, so it's not that unusual for that to happen. So we'll do a hyphen version and make sure that we're on the latest here. Anytime one else the version. Oh, it's initializing the new Amplify CLI version. Okay. All right, great. So 4.442, that is definitely the latest, as it told us before. And so if you type in Amplify, it actually shows you all the commands that we can have here. And so we have a lot here. What happened to me is I actually tried to do an Amplify init. It might even suggest us to do that, but that's not what we want to do. If we want to have a low-code solution where we don't have to deal with the backend, we do not need to initialize an application, but we do need to pull the other side of it. Now, we'll give it a go. I still think we need a user, but maybe we don't. I'll go back here and do a pull. And we'll see what happens. We might get the same error, or it might just pull it down and tell us, complain that we don't have a backend. We'll see. Yeah, I just can't remember if we have to do this step here. Just creating a user and all that stuff. Oh, continue in browser to log in. So we have to click this link here just to verify who we are. Let's copy that best I can. We'll go back. Oh, it's already open for us. Great. I just hit yes. We are now authenticated. We will go back to here, and it's going to choose us some options. So we are using Visual Studio Code, so that's what I'm going to choose. It's easy if you're not using VS Code. It's fine. We're using regular JavaScript today. We are not using a JavaScript framework, so it's none. Our source directory, that's what we're using as our default, so that's good. We're using the default distribution directory. Our build command is npm run build, so that's correct. Our start command is npm start. Interesting that it says run script. I don't know what that means, but npm start is the one we're using. We'll Give it a moment here. And so this is where there's confusion, okay? Successfully generate out the models. Do you plan on modifying this backend? What it's saying is, are you using the admin UI, right? And if you are, then you don't need a backend. Or do you want to make manual changes to your backend via code? That's not something we want to do. So we're going to say no, okay? Because this will start pulling backend code, and that's totally not what we want to do. Okay, and so now what it's done, if we go back to VS Code, I believe we should have our AWS exports file. Now under Amplify, there's nothing there, right? If we pulled a backend, we would have stuff under there, which is fine. In our source directory, we should see something in here. I don't know if we need to do a refresh here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and close that out there. And I'm just going to now type in code period. I just don't trust that my UI is up to date there, so I'm just going to restart it that way. It says I'm using WLS1. I'm pretty sure I'm using 2, but that's fine. So there we go. So notice that it didn't take effect right away. That Amplify folder is gone. But notice that we have that AWS export.js. And so this is what's telling our front-end application what resources to look at. This is what it is. So if you notice these things here, these are actually like the IDs and stuff. So see, we have an identity pool there. Didn't even know it did an identity pool, but we have, let's take a look at the user pool here, okay? So what we'll do is we will just make this a bit smaller, put this off screen for a bit. And I'm just going to go back here. I just kind of want to show you how these things link up, okay? So if we go back and we just type awsamazon.com, I'm going to sign into my console here. And so this one is for the user pool. Go to Cognito, manage user pools, the back end here. Notice the pool ID is that. I think they should match, right? So look at that, 13ULB, 13ULB. So that's how it knows, all right? That's the connection to it. And then this stuff needs to get configured into Amplify. So I'm going to just increase that here. And in our index.js, it's going to import those exports, and then we're going to pass that in the config, and that's going to populate the Amplify CLI. So anywhere where that we now use Amplify for any of the subservices, that's how it's going to know where those references are, okay? So now that we have that hooked up, our application should work, like locally at least. So what I'm going to do is go back here to my terminal, and I'm just going to type in clear, and I'm going to type in npm start and start up the application locally again. And now it's started on localhost 8080. And so we will go back to here. And we have this one on localhost 8080. I'll hit refresh. And so what we're going to do is right click, inspect. And we're going to see if we have any errors. That's something that you should always try to check. We'll go to console. If you don't see console here, there might be like a what's new tab. You might have to click to the right here, but we'll scroll all the way to the top. We have a 404 on the site web manifest. That's fine. But we're not having any real Amplify errors. I see 404 codes. These are the source maps. These are like if you included those and you needed to read the JavaScript, but we don't care about those. These are all superficial errors, or warnings. There are really no errors, okay? So that means our app should work. So what I'm gonna do, let's go ahead and use it. It says sign up or log in to add your banana to the banana board. How to use, we can look up here how it works. But I'm gonna go ahead and hit sign up. And so I'm going to put my email in, so andrew@exampro.co. I'm going to put in a secret password. Okay. Now I'll just put my standard one in because I can always go change it later via the admin panel. And I'm going to put in my my hash node name. That's one of the requirements here. Actually, I guess I don't have it as a hard requirement, which probably isn't a great thing. But mine is... I think mine's I am cloud. And I got to put the @ sign here. There's me. So I'm going to grab my name there. I'm going to go back, paste that in. I'm going to go hit sign up. And so it's warning because I used a very weak password. That's totally fine. And so that should, I mean, it didn't move the sign up. Maybe that's a minor bug on my part. Let's just go see here, console. No, I guess I'd have to do a hard refresh. It's not a big deal. Oh, you know what? Once I sign up, you got to log in. That's why. I guess it doesn't auto log you in. That's totally fine. So if we go back to the admin UI, we go to user management. There's me. I'm unconfirmed, and that's totally fine. I could probably manually confirm myself if I really wanted to. That's not going to prevent anything. That's just like if you had an app and you wanted to make sure people confirmed their emails. That's not an important step for me right now at the stage of my application, so I'm not too worried about it. But we'll go ahead and log in. And so it's going to be Andrew at exampro.co. And I think I made it testing 1, 2, 3. User's not confirmed. So I guess I do have to confirm it. Uh-oh. I did not code it in my application to confirm. So the only way I'm going to get past this is I'm going to actually have to go and manually confirm it. Oh, you know what? It probably sent me an email. That's probably what it did. Because I'm just trying to think, like, I don't remember having to like code anything additional in my app for that. So I'm just going to go my email. I'm off screen here. Okay. Okay. All right. So yeah, that's the case. So I'm just going to show you quickly here. So I got a forgot password code. Not sure what to do with that. Temporary password. I also got this email here. I could have swore it would give you a link. Maybe it doesn't. Oh, you know what? Maybe, hold on here. What if we try logging in? I just can't remember. What if we try logging in with the forgot password code? Will that work? Uh-oh. Well, that's not a big deal. It may, if I have to add an extra video at the end of this to have a confirmation, we'll do that. But to confirm myself, it's not that hard. I'm just going to go over, and they don't let you do it through here, but I think we could do it through Cognito. So what we'll do, and I've already have the user pool open, so just go to Cognito, right? Thought my app was 100% done. We're going to go to staging, going to go to user groups. It says it's unconfirmed. We're going to go here. We'll just confirm the user. Okay, and so now I can go back to my Banana Brigade app, testing 1, 2, 3. We'll go ahead and log in. There we go, and just ignore that error. It's not important. A bit of a bug here. Let's go give it a refresh. And so I actually already placed my banana by accident, maybe. Nope, hold on. There's my banana. Well, it says undefined, so to me that means the nickname is not being stored. Huh. But yeah, that's how the app works. You just left click, or if you want to remove your banana, you hit right click. You can click again. There I am, Cloud. I think I just made a new one. I'll probably have 2 bananas if I refresh now. Yeah, I don't think I coded the delete function either. So again, that's another thing I'll just code in before the end of this, when this video is published, it'll just work properly. But yeah, that's as simple as it is. If I click it, it should take me to my actual profile. This one's undefined, so that goes to that fellow. There's something wrong with the name, but let's go take a look at the data. So we'll go back to our admin here. We'll go to content. And here we see the Cognito UUID, and we have the vector. And so that's being stored there, so that's all good. And these are 2 separate records. One is for myself and the other person there. And if we go, I don't know why they don't show the ID here. I think that would be really smart if they showed the ID, but they don't. And so another thing we can take a look at here is back in the user pool, because we're storing on the nickname our hash node username, and that's how it's supposed to know what to show, eh? But now that we have a working app, let's actually just talk about some of the API endpoints and just kind of browse through the code, okay? Now that we have the app working. So I'm just gonna do a hard stop on the video here and we'll jump into the next part. All right, welcome back. So let's go pull up our Visual Studio Code. Let's just talk about some of the APIs we're using here. So this is a plain Jane JavaScript application, no modern web frameworks, okay? It's just using Webpack and modern JS. That's the only modern stuff. So up here, we're importing our assets. We configure Amplify to work here. And so what I've done is I've abstracted some things out into subfolders to make our lives a bit easier. Views deal with anything that's visual. Utilities is like authorization, the actual banana data, creating a banana element because that's a bit complex. We have models. That's something I didn't show you before in the pull step, but this actually got generated out as well. If you notice here, these are the definitions for, they create models so you can easily reference these and start using them. So here's like, there's a schema here. So this is the actual schema that's generated out. I don't think this is AppSync in specific. This is, I think, Amplify specific. But yeah, it's just a way for us to interact with the object with data store and pass it around. That'll make sense here in a moment. So we have our views. And the first thing our app does is it's going to need to check whether we're logged in or logged out. And so what I have here is this auth current user. And if there's an error, it's going to run this error code. But in most cases, it's going to be successful. And it's going to run this current user success. And if we have a user, if this is defined, then we are logged in. If we're not, it's going to be logged out. To handle state, we're keeping it really simple. We're just applying these to global variables, logged in, the Cognito user ID, and the hash node username. See here where it says user attributes nickname. That's where it's supposed to grab the username. I don't know why it's not grabbing it. But we'll just go, and this is, again, this is not Amplify, this is just my code, so we understand what's going on. But if I just go ahead and right click here, oh, I can't right click on the page, at least not there, because this has right click disabled, so we'll have to click up in this top white bar here. We'll go to inspect. We'll go to console, and these should be logging out. We should have logs here, verbose. Yeah, so this might be called debug mode on your Mac. Here you have to go to verbose, and so here's all the information that's happening. So if we just give this a clear console, and I'm just going to refresh this here. Okay. I lost my inspect. Go all the way to the top here, maybe at the bottom. Here we can see this current user success. So this is what it's returning. All right. So we have the IamCloud nickname. That's how it's displaying that up here. We have the email. We have the sub, which is the Cognito UUID. That's what we just kind of renamed that so it's a bit more human readable. And so we have that there. Okay. So what we're going to do is go back to our code. And I just want to show you this auth class I made up here. All right. So if we go into utilities, auth, it's a simple JavaScript class, and we have sign up, login, log out, current user, current session. I'm not even using current session, but I'm just using current user to check the state. And so this is where Amplify comes into play. So here we're doing AWS Amplify auth. And so we have this as auth. And when we did the sign up, we're calling sign up. And what's interesting about sign up is that you have to pass, the username is the main one for Cognito, or and the way they wrote it. So you actually have to pass, if you have it set to email mode, you have to pass it there. So just to really reinforce that, we'll go back to the Amplify or the AWS console here. And we'll go back to it here. And if we go to user groups, maybe general settings, where did we see this? Oh, here, right? So we have it set to email address, but strangely enough, the underlying thing is always a username, right? So that's just what it is. So we are using email. We're not using username, but that's how it works. And notice that's how we're passing attributes there. We can pass as much metadata as we want. So there's that. For the login, it's very simple. We have a sign in. We pass it the email password. If it's successful, we're going to call our success function, which is passed in through here. Logout is very simple. We just call sign out on it. For the current user, that's going to get us different information. There's a good article on different things that you can get back for this. So I'm just going to see if I can find it quickly here and show you what I mean. Auth current user. It's like current session amplify. I'm just trying to find this article for you here. It was this one here. Hopefully you don't get the paywall. But they're just talking about the fact that there's current session. We have current user and authenticate user. And basically, it's just what gets displayed back, okay? So this one is returning this kind of data. So it's just session data. Does it also have the user? No, so, yeah, it has some cognito information in there. And then you have current user. So that's a very limited amount of information about the user. And then you have current authenticated user, which is a combination of both, right? So there's those three types of options. It really just depends on what kind of data you want to work with. I just choose current user info to make it a lot easier. And so that's what I did there, okay? We'll go back to our index page. And so that is how the authentication works. Let's go up here and take a look at actually how data store works. So that's, I think, a really cool one. So we have this banana board here, and that is the actual board that we see over here. If we go back to our board here. So this big area is the board, okay? And if we left or right click it, it's going to put bananas. But at the same time, it has to go and save things and create things and delete things from Amplify. So what we'll do is go over onto the right-hand side here, go to Views. We'll go to Banana Board.js. And notice that I'm importing banana element and banana data. So banana element is just some DOM manipulation, and then banana data is the one we really want to look at. And so in this one, I'm importing data store. And then I'm also importing that model that was auto-generated out when we did a pull. So data store is really awesome because what it does is it actually stores the data locally in the Chrome database, or whatever database your browser may have. So that way, basically, it allows you to be a progressive web application. The data, like you could have an offline version of it. And it will also sync the data back and forth. So if you do make a change, it will go sync it back to, through AppSync back to DynamoDB. And so when we want to get all bananas, you need to just pass what it is that you want. So I pass in the model, and knows to bring me back all the bananas with all the fields. If I want to find a banana, I can do database query, and I'm going to query based on this limited set. I believe this is a query. So there's scans and queries, but I think that this is actually doing a scan. So in DynamoDB, you have scans and queries. Scan means return me all the fields and then just filter that out. So it's kind of an expensive way of getting data. And query is show me a subset of data. So I think that it just iterates through all data and then sifts it through there. But notice that it's always going to return multiple, so I have to always just say the first one there. This one's returning on the ID. This one's returning the Cognito user ID. When I want to create a new record in data store, I have to create the banana record here, and then I'm going to pass the values I want. When you are updating, you actually don't exactly make an update. Again, I said earlier that data store is immutable, so it's always creating new records. It's never updating an actual existing one. So what you do is you actually just make a copy of the old one and with the new values. All right. And so we saw that before when we looked at DynamoDB with the versioning. And apparently I didn't write the remove one yet. So I'm not sure how to do that yet, but we'll worry about that later. But yeah, that's data store. And that's that there. So those are really the only two really complex components in the application. But the next question is, how are we going to deploy this application, right? So if I was to go back to Amplify Admin UI, and we were to go back to our, we need to go back to our console is where we need to go. So we'll type in Amplify up here, the console, go back to our app here. And if I was to click on our front end and here, this app still doesn't work because it doesn't know, it doesn't have that AWS exports configuration file, right? It doesn't know how to talk to Amplify. So you might think, well, should we just push that AWS exports file? Well, you're not supposed to. It's actually supposed to be ignored. So if I just stop my app here, I'm just going to get status here. And so notice I have those files, but notice that it's not there, right? So I'm just going to go and open up our git ignore file just to show you what we're actually ignoring. And see here, it should be here, right? So if we're not supposed to commit it, then how are we going to get this file actually in production? And so the way we do that is we actually need our Amplify YAML file, and we need to add that as a step. That's how we're going to do it. And I actually have like a Stack Overflow. I'm pretty sure it's just this here, right? So that's what we're going to have to do next, okay? So I'm just going to stop the video here and we'll start another one and get ready for deploy to production. All right, so what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to run, or we're going to make a custom amplify.yaml file. So I'm just in the documentation here under configure build settings. There's a lot of options. And so that's all we really need to do is add this. And I believe that's something that's built into, it's like a shortcut here in the actual configuration file. So the question is, how do we get back that base file? Well, luckily, if you remember earlier, I actually downloaded that file and I have it right here. So what I'm going to do is just bring it on over into my Amplify file. If you didn't download it, you'll just have to stop the video and figure that out, like write it in manually. So what I'm just going to do is drag that into, I think I can drag right that there, right? Yep, into there. And so we have all our default steps. And so I'm going to go back over to our Chrome here. Just going to close some of my tabs here. And this is all we need. So I don't need all of that. I'm just going to grab the whole thing to make my life a bit easier. And I'm going to go to the bottom here. Yeah, still version 1, that's fine. So we need this in our build phase for commands. I think that we would want this before the build run, because if we didn't have, remember that's where it aired out last time when we didn't have it, eh? So we'll go ahead and save that. And we will just go to our terminal here, git status, git add all, git commit -m, update build to run app spec or Amplify CLI or Amplify YAML, Amplify poll. Now, if you're following along, and you'll probably get stuck earlier down the tutorial because they'll try to run that command, right? But I'm not sure, but I think that would mess it up earlier on. So, yeah, what we'll do is now we'll go back to Amplify here. We'll go back up to here. That's going to start another deploy. So we'll just wait for this to finish, and I'll see you back in a bit. All right, so it looks like we hit a failure step here on the build. And so if I go into here, it just says we don't have sufficient permission. So I guess our Amplify console has to have permission in order to access these resources, so it can't just pull them, right? So if we click on fix this here, and we're just in the app settings, general settings here. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's just under here. If we went to general, and we were to go to edit, what it wants is a service role. And so that's something we need to go ahead and create. Now, to make that, we're going to have to make our way over to IAM. So I'm just going to type in an IAM here. And we're going to create ourselves a new role. I'm going to create this role. This is for Amplify. So I think that's what we would choose. Allows Amplify backend. Yep, that's the one we want. So we'll just click on this. Next. We'll see what permissions it gives it. AWS, if you're watching, I do not like this, okay? Like, this is the most permissive you could be. I don't know why they would do that. I guess, like, it's hard because it's hard to say what you're going to use, but I really hope that they figure something out here, because you don't want to do that from a security perspective, but that's all we have, so that's what we're going to use. And I'm just going to call this the Amplify Console service role. Okay. We'll go ahead and create that role. We're going to go back to here. There's no refresh button. So a lot of times AWS will have a refresh button. We don't get one this time around. So what I'm going to do is go back, just click off and click on, hit edit, drop down, and now we have a role, and I'll hit save. I'm going to go back to here, and we need to trigger a deploy. I'm not sure if there's a button for that. Click on this, redeploy this version. Okay, and so hopefully this time I think it should work. And I'll see you back here in a bit. To make this a bit easier, I'm just going to click on the logo here. And I'll see you back here shortly. All right, so that service role fixed our issue for permissions, and it made all the way to the end here. The only thing, though, is that we ran into a small problem. Here, I have the app open here and go inspect. It's still saying it doesn't have access. So that's a little bit confusing. It should definitely have access. Just let's make sure that we have the right link. We do. So if that's the case, I'm going to brute force it. It's not proper, but I heard a lot of people having a hard time with Amplify with this particular issue, but I'm just curious to see if I can fix this myself, because to me, if that is showing up, that means that there's no AWS exports file for it to read, and that is its problem, right? So, unless I did my build spec file wrong, but let's go take a look there. And we run this command before we do an npm run build. So that file should be there. So I'm going to cheat. It's really dirty, but I'm going to do it anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to AWS. We're going to make an S3 bucket. Okay. And we already have admin access. Our service role has full access to everything, so we can do whatever we want. I'm going to make a new bucket. I'm going to call this Amplify Config. Call it BB for Banana Brigade. You'll have to name yours differently if you do that. And I'm just going to put the file in this bucket. So we'll go to source. I'm going to open this in my Explorer, wherever that is. I'm going to open up here. And we are going to drag that on in here. And I'm going to go ahead and upload that. And then, yeah, so that is, it's going there. So I'm just going to copy the destination URL there. I'm going to go back here. I'm just going to write an S3 command to copy it in. So that way, if it has to be there, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's no way it won't work this way. So I'm just going to do a BB. Probably you could do this as a pre-build step, but I'm just going to put it here. It doesn't matter. So it's going to be S3CP, then the bucket file, and then you want the file. So it's AWS exports.js. And then we want to say where we want to download it to. So we're going to place it in our, I don't know what the root would be for this. Let's go look at the build settings file here. I'm just pulling it up here because they might have like environment variables. Not seeing any. Like, is AWS branch the home? For example, the following script uses system variable to execute one set of commands. So what I'm trying to find is, like, normally they're like when you're using like build spec YAML stuff like that, it'll tell you where the default home is. So I don't even know where it is. So what I could do, I really don't know. So I'm just going to go ahead and echo this. I'm going to take a guess, but we're going to echo this and we're going to say, or we don't have to echo, we just got to do PWD. So that will print out where we are. But I'm just going to try this. I'm just going to make it relative and see if I can do it that way. Maybe there's something in the build YAML. There must be something in here for like local path, eh? I don't see anything, but we'll do that. And we'll give that, because this builds out as an artifact somewhere, right? So, but it says dist, so I don't know if, where we are. Well, anyway, we'll give it a go. And this should copy the file. Oh, you know what? I gotta put AWS in front of there. And so if this works, that's great. If it doesn't, at least we know. But I just want this to work, so. We'll give that a push. There we go, and I'll see you back in a bit. All right, so take a look at this. It failed on the second step here. We're gonna go take a look. Remember, I forced it to download that file. So here we can now see our path, which was actually this. So that's good to know. Or sorry, up here, right? But we ran this, so we downloaded the file manually, then we ran this here. I'm noticing now that we now have our stack info. That's the information we actually want to have. So that's useful to have. But then when we get here, it goes importing Amplify environment. We are not working inside a valid Amplify project. Use an Amplify init in the root of your app directory to initialize your project, or Amplify pull to pull down the existing project. So it's still giving us a hard time. Not sure why. But anyway, I'll just come back here in the next video with a solution. While we're waiting for a deploy, and again, this might be out of step, but the point is that my domain is ready. I went over to Route 53, and I think that we can go hook it up. So I'm just going to go over here. And if we go over to registered domains, that's how you know when a domain's ready. So if it was impending, it wouldn't be done. If it's registered, it is ready for hookup. Brigade, and I spelt it all right. It's good for me. And so over here, I've never done this before, so it'll be fun to try this out. But in the Amplify console, we have domain management. And we can go ahead and add a domain. And apparently I can just drop it down there. And yeah, that's what I want it to be. Okay, why can't I hit save? Do I have to configure it? Oh, there we go. Okay. And we have main. That's fine to me. www dot. Sure, that's fine. Set up a redirect from this to that. I agree. I don't like it when things go to naked domain. They should go www. So that's perfect how they did that. Set up redirects for custom domains to point to the admin UI. I don't care about that. If you had users, they would get to the admin. I bet it'd be like admin dot banana brigade, which would be in the admin UI. We don't need that. It's totally fine. We'll go ahead and save that. And wow, that is super easy. It's going to even set up the certificate for us. That is amazing. I love that. It's not that hard to set up a certificate, but if you make a mistake, it costs a lot of money in AWS. I learned that the hard way, but they're very forgiving. If you make the mistake, they'll just refund you if it's the first time. Because when you go here, there's two options: provision certificates, private certificate. This one costs like $500 starting. Just by pressing the button, you're costing yourself $500. So you're supposed to go over here to provision and request a public certificate. I'm just doing exactly what it's doing here. I'm not going to complete it, but I'm just saying you go banana brigade, brigade.com, and then you add another one and you add a wildcard. That's pretty much what it's doing. And then you just add it and confirm it. But this one is still provisioning. I don't know if we get to actually see it when it's made. I'm going to go over here. It's all in Route 53, so it should be pretty darn fast. Give that a refresh. And yeah, I don't know how long that takes, but you know, we'll let it go on its own, and we'll come back and check it later. So I'm just thinking here, maybe we could check out this here in Route 53, because all it's doing is it's checking the hosted zones for that configuration, right? So if I go down below here, it should have a CNAME that it's adding here, right here, eh? So that's what it's adding, and that's what it's checking for. And it's ACM, so it shouldn't take too long. I don't see it in the certificate manager, so it must be separately managed. Normally this is instantaneous with AWS, but like when you're not using Amplify, maybe it's a bit slower. It shouldn't take that long. It's all part of Route 53, but I just wanted to show you that record there. And eventually this probably will complete on its own. All right, so here's the moment of truth. It went all the way to the end, but does it actually work? We're going to give it a right click here. Oh, look, and our custom domain is hooked up as well. That's even more exciting. That's just like a bonus. This works. We're in really good shape. Go to inspect. Still getting that error. Huh. So that's kind of interesting because we did the backend how they asked, right? We did it exactly as asked here, separate. Pre-build looks fine. Does npm install, then does the build. So it's like we're missing something. I still think what it is that AWS exports file, wherever it is going, is not going to the place where we think it's supposed to go. So maybe what we can do, I mean, it's nice we have the domain, but we can go to our build here, and we can take a look here. Now it actually has a backend step. We didn't have this before. So that's kind of interesting. So we're just going to carefully read this and see if we get any kind of information here. Found the console, fetching updates. It's recommended you run this command from the root of your app. I'm not controlling where it runs. I just put it in the file. Your project has been successfully initialized. So yeah, it all says it completed successfully. But give it a nice refresh here. It doesn't work though. So yeah, I don't know what the issue is there. I'll have to do some debugging. All right, so our deploy is done. No errors this time, and I'm going to open it up. I'm just going to show you here. If you inspect it, no errors. Okay, you know how I did it? You're gonna laugh or cry. It depends on the way you think about it. But if I go up to my commits here, and we go to our commits and take a look. So please don't look at this. I just committed it directly. So what that tells me is that the file being generated out is not in the right location. And so I really don't know the problem here. I think I'd have to get on with AWS support, but I'll probably make just an additional video on the end of this. I don't have it right now. But I mean, the app is working. And I mean, I haven't logged in. That's probably something we should do. Not sure why my styling's messed up there. But if that doesn't have an error, we should be able to log in, right? And look at that, I'm logged in. Doesn't like my error there. I have to give it a nice hard refresh, but pretty good for my first Amplify application that's complete, like a real app. We'll go ahead and just click there. There's my banana. So I encourage you to sign up. I will still have to fix a prior step for the confirmation there, but I think that shouldn't be too hard. And I might make an additional video, but to me, this app is done. So there we go. All right, so that wasn't too long. We only waited a few minutes. And now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and clone this one. We'll call it main. And now this is going to set up basically all the infrastructure again, because that's what it's going to have to do if it clones it, right? So we'll go ahead and hit clone. And we see that it's starting to make a main there. I'm just hoping, based on naming convention, that it'll sync up and it'll say set up for continuous deploy. And so if that gets all set up, maybe we can try to remove the hard coding and put it back in and then just see if it just works, because maybe it's not that that file did not compile out, it compiled out to nothing, right? Because there's no backend. So maybe that's just a little UX issue, DX issue, but that might resolve that problem for us. All right, so I didn't talk to AWS support, but you know what I noticed that was really interesting? When I went to my backend, I now have two. So I originally remember when we were creating this, we had a staging one, not particularly what I wanted it to be called. I don't remember having the option to choose the name of it. But the thing is, this one, it's not saying it here. Let me give it a nice refresh here. But this says continuous deploy setup with main front end. And this one has no thing enabled, and this one does. Very unusual. So my remedy here is maybe what I can do, don't know if this will work, but we'll give it a go. I'm going to delete this one. Okay. And then once that's deleted, I'm going to go ahead and clone this one. So this might take a bit of time, because if it has another branch, it'd have to provision a bunch of stuff. But I mean, this shouldn't have anything in it, so it should be pretty darn fast. But yeah, it's very interesting. I've never done this before, so I have no idea how long this is going to take. So I'll see you back here in a moment. All right, so after a short wait, we have provisioned our backend here. I don't see any categories enabled, which is kind of interesting here. Oh, we just had to give it a refresh there. And so I guess that's pretty much a clone of our environment. I would think that we would have to do another app sync or we would have to do another pull here. So I'm going to open up this one here. And what we're going to do is go back to our app. I'm going to delete out the hard coding. Again, don't tell anybody that I did that. And then we'll go here. We'll go ahead and delete this one. We will go back to our app here. And this should have all the same stuff. And it does. Okay. So then we're going to go here. I'm going to go grab that URL there. I'm going to just pull that. We're going to go back. We're going to pull that. And now it just wants to verify our app. It's opened up in another tab here, so I'm just going to hit yes. And we can go back here, and we're going to choose Visual Studio Code, JavaScript, none, source, dist, build, start. Those are all okay, because again, we use all the default settings. Do you plan on modifying the backend? No. Great. And so we'll do a git status, git add all, git commit -m. I guess we didn't have to really pull it because it's not really part of the repo, but revert to the normal, revert to normal. Okay, we'll do a git push, and maybe that will just resolve that issue for us. We're not really going to know until that deploy is done. And yeah, we're just going to have to wait and see here. Yeah, maybe it's just that redundant one. If that's the case, we'll just go ahead and delete that, and that means everything. I mean, any users that were creating that staging one will have to go. But hopefully, it's as easy as deleting that environment. I don't know. It has a bunch of dependencies here, but I guess we'll find out. See you soon. All right, so we waited a little bit there, and the deploy finished. So if that's the case, let's go take a look at the production website. Now, let's see. Without hard coding, if it works now. Give that a right click. Look at that. Okay, so that was our problem. We just had a redundant backend there, and we just got to be careful when we first spin up that backend that we either clone it, make our main, or what have you there. So there you go. Now we actually have it properly.